Shalom, shalom, mishpacha wahabrim. Shalom, shalom, mishpacha wahabrim. That means peace and wellness and wholeness to family and friends. You know, when I was saying that greeting, I wanted to say a line from one of my favorite movies, Beat Street. It's working. It's working. Yeah. I am such a goof. But all praise to the Most High Yahweh. Ko Tehelim Ko Kabo Hati Fedes Le Yahweh Abinu Eloheinu. All praise, honor, and glory to the Most High Yahweh, our Elohim, power, deity, our Father. Today is special. Today's Torah Tittles of the text is very special. We have, I like to call them the Hebrew language heavy hitters, right? And this is titled Hebrew language happenings. Hebrew language happenings. And I have three of the most, I would say, encouraging brothers in the Hebrew language that I ran across thus far. I've met every last one of them through this social media, either through YouTube or Facebook. And it is so awesome. A lot of people ask me, Shanti, how did you learn the language? How do you check in? You know, who do you check in with to see if you're pronunciating things right, translating things correctly, getting everything lined up? And who do you bounce things off of? Who do you go to confirm things? And I'll be like, I have like some Hebrew brothers, and they also are very well enough versed in the Hebrew language. You know, they're all at different levels, but as long as I'm a student, I'm always learning, right? And that's what a brother Amitz says. So this is going to be real special. So I'm gonna give some shout outs and say shalom to the people joining in. Sister Natasha, shalom, shalom. Sister Marie, shalom, shalom. Thank y'all for joining in. Brother Vinny D, what's happening? Shalom to you. You got the gentle giant up there. Yeah, gentle giant, right? Rick Cargill, shalom, shalom. What's happening, Rick? Oh man, yeah, Beat Street. That's a classic, right? And I like to say that's what we're doing right here when it comes to being a part of this faith and getting together and collaborating with fellow brethren. That's gender inclusive, right? Fellow brethren, fellowshipping and coming together, and you know, great minds think alike. We're all like geek nerds, so to speak, if you will, when it comes to this language. And I'm just so excited that I have all of them here. So this is called Hebrew language happenings. So what we're going to discuss, and I'm going to actually introduce everybody in a minute, but this is going to be talking about how y'all read that. How y'all read that? When I was doing the past couple of Torah titles of the text, put up the Hebrew language, and you're seeing me read, or you're seeing the brother Amitz read, and we're reading right to left what looks like pictures, right? The grapheme or the consonants that we were reading look like pictures, and people are like, "How are you guys reading that? How are you guys knowing it's him being talked to or her being talked to? How do you know if it's a verb that's complete or incomplete or in the future? You know, how do you know somebody's doing something to or for themselves? How do you know something's passive or reflexive? What are you talking about when you talk about possessive forms?" So all these things we're going to talk about. That's the meat and potatoes. However, I'm going to let all of the brothers here introduce themselves. I mean, these are the language heavy hitters. Introduce themselves, and also the contact information. I don't have their contact information, all of it here yet, but some of them have YouTubes. I tagged them on Facebook, so they do have Facebook. If you're on Facebook, go ahead and add them. You know what I mean? And if they have a YouTube channel, go ahead and subscribe. If you're really trying to get into the language, if you needed somebody to confirm, ask questions to, you know, not too bothersome though, right? But ask questions to, they are here. So without further ado, I am going to actually just work my way from left to right here. So let's do this. Let's have Brother Amitz, Moray Amitz. Come on, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself, when you got started learning the language and how important it is to you. Go ahead, chop it up with the people.
תודה. Shalom לכולם. I am Amitz ben Yehuda. קודם כל תהיה לך Yahweh. I just want to give total honor and thanks to him, because without him, none of this will be possible. And that includes social media platforms, where we had once upon a time where, we had to drive where someone was to do these type of things. But now with technology, which it can be good when it's used for good things, we can now express ourselves and the message that we want to send to the masses out here in a positive way. So I'm thankful to y'all for that. A little bit about me. I'm nothing special in a lot of people's eyes, but in y'all's eyes, I am special. And for a long time, I suffered with what we call an identity crisis. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know how I fit in. And every place I tried to fit in, it just didn't seem like it set well with me. So there was a time as I was growing up, I grew up in a religious environment, as most of us can relate to that. And, when you don't see anything wrong, you don't question anything. Okay. So I was going to this local church, but I was having personal study in my home. And the personal study was more fulfilling to my stomach than what I was getting. And it's no disrespect, but people are where they are. I understand. But I was getting more home and so I was walking to this place and I was thinking to myself, why am I feeling this way at home and not the same way while I'm in this other environment? So I remember I went into my bathroom and I just cried my heart out to y'all. And I just didn't know what was going on. And then all of a sudden I felt this heavy weight, kavod, kavod on my back. And the more the pressure was, the more I started crying more. And I remember after this, that something spoke to my heart and said that to buy a Bible that had Hebrew in it. And so I kind of stalled with that, because now I'm wiping the tears off. Okay, like, what do I have to do with Jewishness? Because I was taught that I really didn't have any connection with these people. Okay, I was never taught that these people were like me and I had a connection with them. So, that's the thing that kind of started me with that. And so I asked again, what do I, about the question, is this correct? Do I need to do something else? And I didn't hear anything else. So I went ahead and called a store, bought the cheapest one I could find, $19.99 paperback edition. I still have that edition. And I'm also friends with the author. Okay. So I bought it, could not read it. I could read the English part, but I could not read the Hebrew. So I put it along with my other Bibles, because me and that religion, I had like a lot of Bibles. King James, New King James, how you want to call it. So maybe a year passed and that fire came back again. Now, mind you, the feeling, the kavod that I felt, that lasted for almost a month. So I was like spoiled with that. So it was more tangible than anything. Now, y'all was like, okay, the tangibility is over. Let's get back to business now. So around that time, I went, picked it out, dusted it off, opened it up, and I could read the Hebrew. And that's when, through that source, is when he opened my eyes, and I had a dream of a ladder, and that's how all of this started. And yeah, I'm where I am now. My walk with him is even stronger now. I understand the true meaning of relationship. It's not just the same thing, but it's trials and errors in this relationship that tests your trust. I'm reminded of my forefather Yaakov, when he told Yah, he says that, if you do this or if you do that, I'll make you just like my father. I'll make you my Elohim too. So sometimes you see that we're so quick to make Elohim our Elohim, but we don't give him an opportunity to display himself to us? Did he not? See, okay. Let me stop. Okay, so, but that's that's my spiel, and I'm just on fire. I'm on fire every day because every day I look forward to the great expectation. So.
Hallelujah. Thank you. We're gonna come back to you. We're gonna come back to you and tap in with you some more and ask you some more questions about your Hebrew here, about your expertise. Next we have Brother D. Glenn Royal here. That's Brother David Royal. Brother David Royal is also, again, somebody I met through Facebook and YouTube. Actually, I think some people ran across me and then I ran across him. I was like, oh my gosh. So without further ado, Moray David, could you please introduce yourself and just talk a little bit about how you began to get into learning Hebrew?
Shalom, 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 lechulam. It's good to see everybody here on the panel, and had an opportunity to speak with Brother Amitz earlier. It's funny, when divine appointment takes place, it's not like it's in one single spot or in a shoebox somewhere locked away, right? When it happens on multiple fronts, especially when there is a common purpose. And when this takes place, we find that there are so many parallels between the stories. I'm sitting there listening to Brother Amitz, and I could take a pen and a piece of paper and just check off the parallels as they go. So I like his approach. We must be cut from the same cloth, because I'm quick to tell you, don't get excited. Don't get excited. I'm a country boy from Palestine, Texas. Palestine, Texas. Yeah, that's right. Palestine is equidistant between Houston and Dallas. And, you can imagine on my trips to Israel, when I tell people that I'm, from Palestine, that causes quite a stir. But yes, I am a country boy from East Texas. And I came up in a family that I wouldn't say was very religious during the time when my mom met my dad and myself and my brother was born. But I do know that my mom, her great-grandfather built a church right there in Palestine with his own two hands. And they attended that church for forever. It was the original Morning Star Baptist Church of Palestine, Texas. There is a bigger and obviously much more aesthetically appealing edifice standing on that spot now, but there is a picture in the back room of that church standing, and my mom is probably about 7 years old, and you can see her just as plain as day with her little bow legs and with the Crisco grease shortening that they had rubbed on her face like they put on all the church children. So how did Hebrew come into this East Texas boy's life? Well, it happened by way of an ankle injury. They tell you don't do something, you do it anyway. They have a saying, an expression that says, a hard head makes a soft what. And I bounced nonetheless, and I ended up bouncing so far away from the center that I ended up cracking my ankle, between the springs and the railing. And my curse for my disobedience was to be stuck in the house at my grandmother's house, at my mom's house down in Houston, once we'd moved to Houston from Palestine. And I was stuck in the house with all of these, no offense, all of these women. And, because everyone else, all my other cousins and everyone else was in school, I'm in the seventh circle of hell right now, because I can't watch cartoons. They're watching soap operas. And it goes from All My Children to One Life to Live to General Hospital. They're talking about recipes and all these other things. Well, I didn't have an escape. And I couldn't walk around very much because I had a cast on my foot. So lo and behold, underneath the coffee table, there is a Hebrew Chaldee dictionary with a small concordance. I pick it up and I start to flip through this book. I didn't find anything of interest until I got to the very back, and there are these symbols, right? That, what in the world are these? So I started obsessively. If anybody has seen Close Encounters of the Third Kind, this guy kept building the shape of this volcano in Wyoming, build it everywhere. So I'm the kid that's scribbling Hebrew letters everywhere, on the tables, on the walls, to the window, to the wall, all of these places. I'm scribbling down, these letters until in my third grade class, my teacher sees them. And she asks me what they are. And I explained to her, well, they're music notes from, a Bible book at my grandmother's house, X, Y, and Z. There is another book that is involved, however, but it's much too extensive. I'll tell you about it later. That is a much older book that's a Hebrew book that was in the possession of my grandmother as well. I saw this book and immediately fell in love with it. And I just became obsessed with the letters more and more. Once I found out from that teacher that it's an actual language and it's connected with the Bible, she then began to, after she sent me home with a note, she began to give me these basic Hebrew books. Her name was Miriam Cohen. That was my third grade teacher. I had a third, fourth, and fifth grade. And then finally, for this part of the little story here, my mom's baby sister, Deborah, of blessed memory, sweet as pie, she got married, and she married a little short guy from Valdosta, Georgia, and they went to New York for their honeymoon. And as they're walking through some part of the Bronx, the sun shined, as she put it, the sun was shining off of something that hit her right in the eye. She stopped with her husband, backed up. She had him by the hand, and they stopped in front of a Judaica store. And she went inside and she bought two twin Sidors, Sidor books, with the faux jury on front and X, Y, and Z. And she, when she came back, of course, she's married now. She doesn't live at my grandmother's house anymore, but she still had a few of the things in her room that she needed to get rid of. But she put the books there for safekeeping. So while I'm there, I had access to all these Sidors. So with the help of that elementary school teacher and just an obsession with this language, I became proficient enough to read through the Sidor, and I could also use the concordance in order to translate what it was that I was reading. And it goes on and on. But I'll say this before I stop yapping, because as you can tell, I can probably do this for forever. What Hebrew did for me as a young man was it threw open all of the doors for me when it came to thinking. It kept me in perpetual church trouble, not only from my childhood, but all the way here to Oakland, California. I've been thrown out of too many churches to count because of my overtly Jewish ways. And ultimately, when I was about ready to give up, didn't think this would be good for anything, the doors started to open, and I realized that there's been a lot of time lost and a lot of history and heritage lost. And let's just say this: my experience with the language started back in the year 1978. Okay, so you can imagine, I'm so happy to see brothers like Amitz, Sister Shanti, and so many other people, because I figured I was going to be the weirdo that was out here forever and by myself. But it's a pleasure and an honor to be here. And thank you so much, Sister, for inviting me to your platform.
Hallelujah. I mean, you guys' stories is awesome. Until Metzalel comes back and gives a brief introduction of himself and lets us know how he got into the Hebrew, I'll go into my story. I came into the walk. I call it the walk, right? Because it's something you walk out, halak, right? I came into the walk 2013. After my mother passed away 2 years prior, I started actually reading the Bible, pretty much kept in my registry what she told me on her dying bed. She said there was a diet that the Lord God had the children of Israel on. And I was like, okay, this is crazy. I've never heard this before. So fast forward back again to 2013. I joined a Messianic congregation here in the city of Sacramento. I'm no longer a part of that congregation. However, the pastor there and the teacher there are very, very nice and studious and helped me out a lot. And the pastor saw some things in me. But the reason I got to the Messianic congregation is that I ran into Facebook because I was looking for people who were like me, who were reading the Bible and were seeing some things in the Bible that were a little bit different than what we were doing in church. I grew up Baptist. So with that being said, the people on Facebook, I ran into them. I was like, I want a church, I want a fellowship on Saturday, but I know I'm not really at the place where I'm supposed to go to an SDA church, right? So they said Messianic, Shanti, you have to look for Messianic, and I was like, oh, okay, Messianic. And so that was 2013. Got into there about 2014. You start seeing all the people who call themselves Israel on Facebook. And so a lot of people, you run into how to pronounce the Tetragrammaton. That's Yod He Wah He. That's the Lord God of Israel's name in the Hebrew, right? You run into all these different arguments about how to pronounce the name. And it was so many different pronunciations, and it still is. And I'm definitely not one to harbor or major on something minor like the pronunciation of the name. I do use a pronunciation, but I do know how to explain to people why I use that pronunciation. But anyway, there were so many people who were arguing, and I said, well, who of you, the people who are arguing, I said, who of you knows how to read any other Hebrew words? Because I was like, okay, Yod He Wah He has to be a Hebrew name, and Hebrew name are part of Hebrew words, right? So when I asked that question, it was crickets. And so the Messianic congregation, they did offer some classes starting to teach the congregation biblical Hebrew, right? So they were teaching it. They start off with the Aleph Bet, right? We were learning about 3 or 4 letters each time, once a week after service on Sabbath or Saturday. And it was kind of slow for me. I like a challenge. So I ran into a brother on YouTube. He was teaching lessons in Hebrew. He's no longer doing it. But one of the books he said he learned from was this one. So I picked up this book here. It's Learn Biblical Hebrew by John H. Dobson. And what I did was, along with the Messianic congregation's Hebrew classes, I went further. I went further. And I just sped up a little bit. And that's how that happened. I went through each chapter after chapter. Because like Brother Amitz was saying, I was hungry. I was hungry and I was starving for something that would help me understand the guideline book of my faith just a little bit more. And that's how it was. And I went into I went into Half Price Books here in Sacramento. I just go there and browse. Don't know what I'll find, but I go there and browse. And I think that was about 2015, maybe 2015. I don't know. I ran into this book on the shelf, and the price is smudged off, but I don't think it was like more than like $15. I think it was like between 10 and $15. And this is the major one that this is the major resource that I tell people, although there are others, right? This is the resource I tell people is good to learn from. So this is Basics of Biblical Hebrew. Excuse me. Oh my, flubbing. Basics of Biblical Hebrew Grammar Book by Gary Pratico and Miles Van Pelt. Gary Pratico and Miles Van Pelt. So that's my spiel. That's my spiel. And actually, we're going to show some paradigm charts from a shortened PDF version of this book right here. All right. So when מצילאל comes back on, we'll have him introduce himself. But people's like, how y'all read that? When we're reading the Hebrew text, such as this is Yehoshua I'm in right now, or Joshua. I was actually finishing up chapter 2 of Yehoshua. This is a reader's Hebrew Bible but I have the Biblia Stucartensia. But you know, people look at these consonants and these letters, and they're like, oh my gosh, how do you read that? How do you guys know how to decipher, diagnose, and all that stuff when you're reading? And I was like, it's simple grammar, just like you would learn a language of Spanish, French, Dutch, Swiss, whatever. You have to go through grammar, not necessarily a concordance, not necessarily a dictionary, but a grammar book. So with that being said, before we go deeper into showing some paradigm charts, I want to ask More Amitz, More David, some of your teaching techniques for students. Like what do you recommend teach first? I just want to see if we're all on the same page, to learning Hebrew. Because I know, for one, you have to have the discipline, the motivation, the tenacity, the drive. You have to have the yearning to get into this thing. I practiced early on. I think no less than 3 or 4 times a week, no less than like an hour a day. So what is your teaching method when students come to you? Like what do you recommend them learn first when they're learning Hebrew, and second and third and so on and so forth? What's your teaching method? So Amitz will go first, and then I'll have Brother David go.
Well, one thing that I've learned, starting with myself, is the first thing that I present to them is, what kind of learner are you? Because we must realize there are different types of learners. Everybody does not learn the same way. Everybody does not learn at the same pace. Me, for myself, I am a visual, audible, and very heavily kinesthetic learner. That means I got to put my hands on it. Some other people learn quicker without all of those things. Some people are audio learners, but they can just hear it and they catch it just like that. So I'll tell someone who is not an audio learner, but may need all those other areas to encompass just the simple basics. Don't get frustrated. It's, some people, when they run a race, they may not all get to the finish line at the same time, but eventually they all finish the race, right? So my thing is, that's the first thing that I start with is, what type of learner are you? And then based on that, my second question is, what is your motivation for learning the language? And then once they give me that, then, based on if they say, for instance, well, I just want to learn how to read the Hebrew Bible, then we'll structure something there. Or if they want to learn how to be conversational, then I'll structure it there. And so, but the foundation is what type of learner they
are. And after you establish what type of learner, then what? Do you go into, with the language? What do you say learn first when they're learning the language? What one thing do you say learn first?
The one thing that I ask them, I automatically ask them, do they know the alphabet? That's not something I always say you got to learn first. And
okay.
The reason I say that is because everything is phonetic. Okay, everything's phonetic. Babies, including ourselves, when we come out of the womb, we don't go to a grammar book. We never seen the letter before. Okay, we just hear Abba, Ve'ima. We hear them speak, whether it's do, doda, however it may be. We hear them speak, and the audio, we produce sounds from what we hear. Say daddy. We've never seen the word daddy. They just daddy. So letters are sounds. They are phonetics. Like the name Jesus is Jesus, which is phonetic, which it has nothing to do with Zeus. Okay. Just want to throw that disclaimer out there. But Jesus, okay, which is phonetic. It's a phonetic form of Yeshua. Okay. Which is interesting to me that they can get the tetragrammaton correct, but they cannot get Yeshua translated correctly. Don't understand. But anyway, so it's all phonetic, okay? It's all phonetic. It's just sound. So I'll ask them anyway, do you know the alphabet? And sometimes they'll say yay. And if they do, that's good. If they don't, then we'll go over the alphabet real quick. I got a nice little song that I teach them how to learn it. But the song is based on phonetics. It's based on auditory. And then after that, we'll go into the nikudot, if vowels, if they know the vowels. And if they don't know those things, then we'll go over those real quick because these are just basics. But my biggest thing when I teach them, whether it's modern, because I teach modern and I teach a little bit of biblical, which modern is foundation from biblical Hebrew. There are not two different types. I don't know where people get that from too, but they're okay. But what I teach them is that when we was talking about the if they don't know the word, you were saying the concordance. The reason that I do not trust the concordance when it comes to learning a language is because they have to understand what tense that word is in. That word is in the third masculine singular, past tense. Okay, so that means when you see that word, you can't say this is the word because it doesn't have, it's not inflected in any way. So my thing is when I teach a word, I teach them the word not as a whole, like say for instance, le'echol, to eat, right? Le'echol. I don't teach that as a set word. Okay, I teach it. This is an infinitive, but we break it down to its third masculine singular. Okay, and so you want to learn what the word is to build it up, and so just covering the basics. You know, I'm unorthodox. I don't have a set pattern. I just go with the flow. But if I had to do it like that, those are the things that I would probably ask first.
Hallelujah. Thank you. You know, it's always good to hear a teacher's methodology of how they inform their students of things when they're conveying information, right? Everybody has their own teaching style, so it's good to understand everybody's teaching style. But basically, your foundational premise is just like mine. um, and that's awesome. Moray David. So uh, your students, when you teach, what's some of the first things, and then the very first things, what are some of the first things you're teaching or before you begin to teach? And then what are some of the first things when giving out instructions to learn the Hebrew language?
Okay, yeah. Well, I agree wholeheartedly with Amitz's approach, and you have to take in consideration the strengths and weaknesses of each individual with respect to their ability to learn and to absorb. I also know that because, let's just face it, we're born dealing with, these Romanized letters. They run from left to right. The Hebrew, any of the Afro-Semitic languages are so vastly different from what the English eyes are used to in the expectation. Not just the fact that they run from right to left, but also that they're big, bulky, and also they have a pictorial value and a numerical value as well, too. So that makes it very different. So this is, in my opinion, why so many people initially have pushback against learning the language, because first of all, they've made it so lofty of a goal that they've already self-defeated themselves. Okay, and they feel like it's something that they can't quite climb. And it speaks a lot to your title, Shan. How do y'all read that? So, with my thought, I always want to pick one common place to start for absolutely everyone, and typically that is right off out the gate, the Aleph Bet. Why? It's because number one, you want to give the individuals a sense of accomplishment. If they can absorb, um, you know, 5 letters a week out of a 22-letter alphabet system, they can look back and see that they have this accomplished, that they can readily identify them, and they readily know, what their sounds are. Then there's a feeling of accomplishment with that. Um, Everyone is on the same page, and then now what ends up happening is that those who are the above and beyond students, you'll find that they'll tap you on the shoulder and whisper, I know everybody's at 5 letters, but I'm actually at the 12th and the 13th letter. And you're like, okay, you go ahead and do it, right? So they're powering ahead. Now, because people also need, in my opinion, I guess I would kind of term it as a signpost. They need something to look back on and to count as levels of accomplishment. When they have the letters down, okay, and here's the thing for me, I can't just blow through the letters. I know for the learners that are much more quick and adept, they want to go quicker. But you have to make sure, or I've had to make sure, that everyone is completely solid on the letters. They have the letters, there's no doubt, because so many of them look the same. Some of them, the only difference is a curve or a thicker base or a little doo-wop on the front, So you have to make sure they have those down. I move from there to the diacritics, okay? And then once people can pronounce what they're reading, regardless of whether they can understand it or not, that feeling of accomplishment is monumental for them. And then finally, I'll say this. This is what separates the men from the boys, the women from the girls. Those who are so awestruck that they can just babble and pronounce something, right? Maybe even show it off to a few friends. If that's where their interest level was, that's where they're going to stay and get stuck. The people who really want to learn, it's okay, what in the world am I reading and what am I saying? And that's always, whether it's been the more modern class I've had here in Alameda, or whether it's been all the way back in boot camp when I was in the service, I'm teaching people Hebrew, or, teaching people's kids Hebrew in some of the non-denominational churches that I've been given the left foot of fellowship and removed from. The bottom line is it's always proven to be effective. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Like I said, I started off with the basic fundamentals, which is the alphabet. Not only do you learn the alphabet in the phonetic, right? You learn a song with it, and Sister Brandy says she want to hear the song, Brother Amitz. Is there a place where she can go hear the song? I don't know if you can play it here, but if you can upload it.
There is one actually on my school website.
Okay.
But it I have one outside of that one that I do. Real quick, it don't take long. It's got a jingle with it. It's like Aleph Bet Bet Gimel Dad Hey Vav Zayin Chet Tet Yod Kaf Kaf Lamed Mem Nun Ayin Samech Pe Fe Sade Kuf Resh Sin Shin Tav. Now I think I've said enough. I learned that from a rabbi.
Right. And you hear it's the same melody we're primarily familiar with, right? When we learn the alphabet for English, right? And that's how you know it's good to take something familiar and make a melody to it. I rap, right? You rap too, Brother Amitz. You know how it is. People ask us, how do you guys remember all those lyrics? I said it's to a melody. And that's why the Most High Yahweh had the children of Israel write a lot of the Torah down, what? In song. But Moses says, teach them this song. Teach them this song and tell them to sing it. Right? Tell them to sing it. And these are the things that are good for not only, the adults, but the children, things in melody. So yeah, I learned the alphabet and a lot of writing out the alphabet. Oh my gosh, a lot of writing out the alphabet. And then Brother Sean Appleton from the congregation, he had us do exercises where you actually pick up some sort of Hebrew Bible or go into some sort of Hebrew app and learn how to distinguish the consonants or the letters from one another. Because like Moray David said, a lot of the consonants look alike. That's why, the title of the series, Torah Tittles. Some of those tittles are the tiniest little differences in a letter to distinguish a resh from a dalet, right? And so after the alphabet, you learn the nikud or nikudot. When we say nikud, that's vowel. When we say nikudot, that's vowels. So you see how we're able to distinguish singular from plural. So you learn the vowels, and the vowels are pretty much the same as we have here in our English, right? A, E, I, O, and U. However, they're like pronounced like this: ah, eh, ich, oh, ah, eh, I, oh, u, right? And then you have the matres lecciones. Matres lecciones, you do see it in the Dead Sea Scroll scripts there, where you have the yod that also acts like the I or the E sound, and then you have the wa, which is actually doubles as what? The vowel O, right? So, and then after that, you learn syllabification. Syllabification, that was the next thing for me because phonetic, like Brother Amitz said, phonetic, a consonant and a vowel equals a sound. And you don't realize that when you're talking, right? A consonant plus a vowel equals a sound. So when we say some things, can't fly in the Hebrew when you're pronouncing a word, a lot of that has to do with syllabification and the rules for a consonant and a vowel. So briefly, I'll say this: in 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 Hebrew, there's two types syllabification mainly, right? A consonant and a vowel is open. A consonant, a vowel, and a consonant is closed. So you have open and closed syllable, but still, it's a consonant and a vowel equal in a sound. And you also learn the difference between translation and transliteration. Translation is, say, like for example, when you say the word dabar in Hebrew, when you hear that word dabar, what's that? Dalif bet resh. That is word. It means word in our English, right? Transliteration is when you're taking a word in its primary language and you're actually using your secondary language's consonants to try to get that same sound. So, like Moray Amitz was saying, Jesus, the name of the Messiah, for those who believe in the Messiah, Jesus. People like, well, how did it go from Jesus to Yeshua to Jesus? Transliteration. That's what it is, right? Transliteration. Jesus, you take the letters from Greek to Hebrew. Then you take the letters from Hebrew to English. That's transliteration. That's the transliteration. Okay, now we're gonna go into the Hebrew charts in a little while, but I finally got Moray Mitzilel here. So Moray Mitzilel, go ahead and unmute yourself. Please tell us a little bit about yourself, and then also how you came into learning the biblical Hebrew, and then I'll ask the next question, and then we'll move on to some paradigm charts, some paradigm. Go ahead, Brother Mitz.
All right, so I'm Amitz. I'm basically a professional troll. I just happen to be, I have an elementary knowledge of biblical Hebrew. I think the second question is, why did I get into it?
Why or
I
how?
think
Why or
most.
how? Why or how? How did you get into
Oh,
learning biblical Hebrew or Hebrew? Go ahead.
well, I think it's just really, it will ultimately distill to the why. And anyone that endeavors towards proficiency in biblical Hebrew, they're doing it because they want to understand what is being expressed in the principal language attestation. And so generally what happens, like people that are, let's say they're ardent students of the text, they will encounter people that will provoke them to make intrinsic inquiries of themselves, like, that is interesting. I have generated a perspective based on literature and translation. And the literature and translation could reflect an idea or a concept that is not congruent with the principal language attestation. So then people are like, oh, maybe I need to learn Koine Greek, because I had this idea, like, women need to shut up. They can't talk, and then someone learns, Koine Greek and busts them in their head with it, and so or women can't wear pants. And then some woman's like, I really wonder if that's what it's saying. And they go to a seminary or they go to some school and they learn biblical Hebrew. And so there you have it.
Pause real quick.
Yeah.
Your connection, you were kind of going in and out. We actually made out about 99%. Just want to make sure you're close to a connection that's definitely gives you the chance to be heard clearly, because everything you're saying is very important.
How is it right now? Is it really garbage right now?
It's great right now. Great.
Is it really
Okay.
bad right now?
It was
Can you hear
bad
me
just a
at
second
all?
ago, but yeah, I can hear you. Definitely can
Hello.
hear you. Yeah, can you hear me, Mitz?
Hello.
Hello?
All
Mitz
Can
right.
can't
y'all
hear
hear
me.
me?
All
Yeah,
right.
I can hear you, Mitz.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Is
Mitz.
it garbage? What I'm
No,
the connection?
it's good now. It's
All right.
good. I think as long as you stay close
All right.
to wherever you're at, I think you're good. Okay.
Yeah.
So my next question before we get into some paradigms, looking at some paradigms, when you're teaching, what are some of the first things, what are some of the first methods or first things you tell to your students, or what are some of the first things you teach to your students when they're learning the biblical Hebrew or the Hebrew language?
The first thing that I say is nothing. I like my standard disclaimer is that nothing that I do or say should at any point in time be construed or understood to be an instrument to malign, castigate, deride, minimize, marginalize one's belief system or faith praxis, right? Because sometimes you could say something that could be true or factual, but you inadvertently encroach into someone's area of faith praxis, right? And that could cause an issue. And so I typically tell people right off the bat, before we even get into an aleph or a bet, you know, understand this now. Because at some point you will inevitably say something that is going to challenge their worldview, and you're not even going to do it on purpose, you know. So, and then, I move into getting them to understand the relationship of look and sound and arrangement and how it impacts meaning, you know.
So you're talking about morphology, right?
Mhm.
Affects phonology, correct?
Yes.
Explain from, so people can know. Like we
Okay.
talked about
So,
phonology a little bit, but go ahead, talk about morphology affecting
okay.
phonology.
So I think a lot of times when people of faith, let's just start with that, right? They're like, I'm a believer and I want to know this word, and so they go to university, or they hire a tutor, or they audit a class, and they are immediately harmed by the jargon, the verbiage, a plethora of polysyllabic words that they probably haven't heard in 27 years because they haven't worked on grammar since grade school. So the process begins to alienate them. So I think, when we look at words like morphology, I tell people with whom I work, it's like, hey, we're going to teach you some fancy words. This is not designed to talk through you or around you or make you feel bad. It's just that if you want to ask intelligent questions and get intelligent answers, you got to use the terms that those guys are familiar with. And so, I'm like, okay, our first fancy word is morphology. Morphology is how it looks. If we could just oversimplify it, phonology is how it sounds. Syntax is how it's arranged, the pieces, you know, and so, when you pound that in, because at the end of the day, you don't want people to memorize a paradigm without understanding the relationship, because the language itself is about the relationship of look, sound, and arrangement, and how the aforementioned impact meaning. So morphology, phonology, syntax, and how they impact semantics, meaning. So
thank you, Mitch. Thank you. Okay. So with that being said, let's get into some of the fun stuff. I'm gonna share my screen here, and we're gonna play teachers for a minute. Is that cool with y'all? We're gonna play teachers. I love this part. We're gonna play teachers. The people like, man, how y'all read that? Practice. Practice. And lots of practice. Right? Hold on. Let me see. Hold on real quick. Let me see. Okay, my computer is over here slow. Okay, no problem. All right, so this is 2. So we want to show screen number 2. All right. Allow. All right. So let's move this over here. All right. So this is the PDF of the Basics of Biblical Hebrew by Gary Pratico and Miles Van Pelt. Right. So can you guys see that? Is it too small? Is it too big? Let me know.
okay,
Let me move this over here. You guys can make it out.
Oh yeah, you know me, I'm on the phone, so I have to what they call it, I have to do that finger and thumb thing and
zoom in.
yeah,
Okay,
but it's good.
Okay, all right. So just a little bit of it. This is what we were talking about by the alphabet. The consonant or the grapheme or the letter, right? We understand what the name of it is. We understand what the pronunciation of it is, and the transliteration, right? So this is what we learn mainly first, right? Some people, some teachers are unorthodox. However, these are the foundational principles of learning the language. We learn the grapheme that corresponds to the sound it's going to make, right? So Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Wav, Zion, Het, Tet, Yod. Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samek, Ayin. Let me scroll down. Samek, Ayin, Pe, Sadeh, Kof, Resh, Sin, Shin, Ta. Right? And as you heard me say the Aleph, Bet, the pronunciation, they tell you how they sound in your primary language, right? Our primary language is English, right? Let me skip ahead. Hebrew vowels. Hebrew vowels, right? And in the Pratico, they break them up into short vowels, long vowels, and that is very important, right? Let me zoom in just a little bit more on this page here. Zoom in just a little bit more. So these are your short vowels, right? And these are when you see these the red markings under the this is a bet here. That's a bet. You see these red markings under this little picture that looks like a house. Hint, hint. Right? Those are the nikud, the vowel or the vowels, nikudot that we were talking about, right? This gives you the ah, a, I, o, u, right? Now I know you hear some people in what you call the Hebrew Israelite camps. They say there's an all A class vowel in Hebrew. I would like to say that is false. That is false because there are quite a few words in Hebrew that are spelled exactly the same, but when they're pronounced different, they mean totally different things. So yes, there is more than the A class vowel in Hebrew, right? So those are your short vowels, right? You call these changeable long vowels, right? Ah, A, O, ah, A, O, right? We won't get into too much, right? But then you have these patterns. Again, look, A, E, O, U, A, E, O, U, right? And you learn what those little things that look like T's and apostrophe marks and dots, you learn what each of those mean. Now, for people whose primary language is Hebrew, when they pick up a book or some sort of scroll or whatever, a lot of times you won't see them having these nikudot in their readings. Why? Because Hebrew is their primary language. They don't need training wheels. We who are learning Hebrew as like a secondary or third language or whatever, we need these training wheels at first. The goal is to take off the training wheels, because once you get used to the pattern, the phonology, you'll be able to make out the words, right? And so that's just a little bit of the vowel part, right? And then you get into all this other stuff, but you learn over here to the left, you could see the chapters and what they're going to talk about, right? So syllabification, nouns. You get into the definite article. In our English, it would be the the definite article. The conjunction wob. You get into learning how to distinguish prepositions, adjectives, pronouns, and pronominal suffixes. Those are your possessive type words. If it's something belongs to him or to her, or it's mine, or it's theirs, or give it to them, those are possessive type words. But this is where I want to go to here a little bit. People want to know about these things. ain't that right, Mitz, David, and brother Amitz? They want to know about these things. They want to know about these things right here. When we talk about the verb conjugations, right? We keep talking about the cow, the nifal, the pl, the pual, the hefil, the hofal, the heatpile. Well, it's going to take you a while to get to this point. However, not necessarily, we can. I know a lot of teachers actually incorporate their students, maybe into a couple to a few months in it. They incorporate being able to show their students these verb conjugations, right? I know Brother David does. So, with that being said, let's do this. Yeah, go ahead.
To be honest, I'm
And
sorry.
this is a free for all. Go ahead. Everybody
I'm
jump
sorry. No,
in.
I'm an old guy and I'll forget my thought. To be completely honest, the paradigm chart is one of the most problematic areas for those that are being introduced to the grammar.
Yep.
Because most adult learners take it from maybe a singular dimensional perspective, like, oh, I have to memorize this thing. And you don't want to memorize it, because even if you memorize it, you won't know the inherent relationship of look and sound and how it impacts meaning. And
Right.
so my first class, they have 59 minutes to learn the alphabet and demonstrate some level of proficiency, meaning that they can identify the sound and produce the sound that the grapheme represents. And then we review, and then we move towards vowels. And while we're introducing the nikudot, right, the diacritics, we're introducing the stems of conjugation, right? And because the vowels are necessary, because we use these vowels to convey thematic vowels, right? And these thematic vowels determine or dictate to the listener or the reader, is it active, is it passive, is it intensive, is it reflexive, is it simple, and so I think it's not a stretch, but I mean, it works. If people can understand the relationship of the look and the sound and how it impacts meaning, then the paradigm chart is not so scary.
Right. Right.
So,
brother David or Amitz, you guys can hop in. Go ahead.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, I agree with Brother David. You don't have to learn, them. Now, my take on it is, when I teach my students, is you don't have to learn them all.
Mm-hmm.
What I do teach them is learn only one form, and that is the call form. It's called call because it's light. It's easy. If you learn call,
okay.
if you learn the call form, then you'll know every other form, because every other form, every other conjugation builds off of call.
As we
or
can see.
pa'al.
Right.
Every other
Can you shorten? I mean, not shortly, briefly explain the pa'al, the pei ayin lamed. Can you explain that? Explain that, please. I know you know what I mean. Like, go ahead.
Ken. So with the pa'al, like say, because 80% of the words that are used are in the pa'al form. Now I agree with Brother David, is you have to make that connection, because the problem that they really have is that they have not got the tenses down. Once you get the tenses down and you say, okay, I know this is speaking, because some of the conjugations may be the heath pa'el, which means it can mean reflexive, it can mean reciprocal. It has different, but context is key to all of it.
Key. Context
is key, because you won't really know exactly what tense the word is in unless you see it in context. So for the pa'al, for example, a word like you said, dalif bet resh, okay, for debar, for word, right? If you look at that in the third masculine singular, then you can see the tense of that word. Now, if you go to a nifal, you'll start seeing the pattern. It's still in call, it's still in pa'al, but you'll start seeing things added to it. You'll see a noon added to it. You'll be like, okay, I get that. When you see the heath pa'el, you'll see the hay and the top added to it. So it's all pattern based. The Hebrew language is a very pattern based, very fluid, very rhythmic language. So once you start actually noticing the patterns, it makes it less intensive for you to get it, because our brains were designed to understand patterns. That's why, and if I may say, the Hebrew letters that we are learning from are from the Aramaic square script. Okay, if you notice something that the which is close to the Phoenician or the Egyptian hieroglyphics, they were pictures. And I say this to this day, and no one has proven me wrong, is that I've said, show me one verse where Yah, the creator, has ever addressed us as adults. You won't find it.
Oh, now
we
I'm gonna add
children.
We are
children. If you go to a child, and you say, tell me about your family, that child is not going to write letters. That child is going to draw pictures that paint. She's going to draw pictures that paint words. So this shows you that it's all phonetic. It's all phonetic. It's all patterns. Once you see that pattern so many times, you're going to forget about all of that. This goes over here, this vowel, this one, that. You're going to forget about all that, okay? Let's be honest.
Right.
Okay? Right. I guarantee you, most people that know English as their main language couldn't tell you why a contraction happens the way a contraction happens, okay?
Exactly.
You've done it so many times that it becomes, the patterns. So I teach my students the same thing. I teach my Talmudim the same thing, is that it's patterns. Once you learn these patterns, that's what I point out to them. And when they learn the patterns, the structure is much better for them. So every conjugation, and let me say this, there are way more than 7.
Correct. Very much so. Correct. I would like to add, before Brother David says something, the pa'al, it means he did, he formed, he made, and it's built upon that. So I don't have the pa'al up here, but they're using the word shema. So you see the shin here, the mem, and the ayin, and then you keep seeing the shin. You keep seeing these roots. It switches over to shaber, then shabar, and then the word for king, right? But you start seeing a pattern. But that's what the paradigm means. Pattern. Go ahead, Maury David.
Oh, I don't have to say a word. The brother nailed it, because because that's exactly, I mean, even you, Shanti, you said earlier you were talking about the education system in Israel.
Mm.
And the kids have the Nikudot up to about the third grade, I believe. They have them up to about
Mm.
the third grade, but by that time period, they've already vocalized the words enough, with their prefixes and suffixes, to where when they hit fourth grade and beyond, they snatch the training wheels away. And if you
Woo.
think about it, because we, are learning or have learned or acquired Hebrew as our second language, not only are the Nikudot our training wheels, but even also these paradigm charts are as well too. And the brother nailed it. Amitz nailed it right on the head that, once you lock in these patterns, then, all of a sudden you won't even really, to be honest, you won't even think about the chart anymore. I mean, I can read something, as I'm sure the rest of the brothers can as well too. They can, read something, and in some cases you might have to look up and really think about where it falls, but you can express exactly what's being said. You might not remember right off the top or right away the exact word, or as the brother put it, this goes over here and here, over here and there. Because now once you've picked up that pattern, you pretty much shed it. You shed the technicalities and the preciseness, and the wording of the chart, because now your brain is locked it in. And the rules, I would kind of make it akin to, these things, you've seen them on social media, I'm pretty sure, where it says, if you can read this, this means your brain, blah, 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 blah. And it's a series of numbers or whatever that have been substituted for letters. But after you see that first sentence and your brain puts together that they're using 7 for an L and 3 for an E and on and on and on, you can read what's there, right at the drop of a dime. So yeah, outstanding, brother. Amitz, as you nailed that right on the head.
Oh, man. And another thing they can do, this will also help you to see the pattern too, is that if you look at every one of the conjugations, as Sister Shanti can probably point it out to you, as she got it pulled up. If you look in the third masculine singular of each one of these conjugations, the name tells you what the conjugation is.
Let's bring it up. So this is your cow perfect, right? And over here in the chart, what we saw, I just want to go back to it real quick. Actually, the name of these verb conjugations, you can hear it in their pronunciation. So the nishma, he was heard. Shama, he heard. Shiber, pl, shubar, pual. Himlik, hifil, right? And then you have the hofal. You have homlach, hofal. And then for the heat pael, you have heat habe, right? You can hear them in there. But go ahead, go back. I'm gonna go back to it. Or I'm gonna make it a little bigger. Go ahead, more Amitz.
Yeah, I mean, that just what you said, you can actually hear the name, and then you'll also see the pattern of the vowels and everything in that as well too. You'll see that. So it's again, as you and Brother David said, David, is that it's pattern. Once you see it and you get it, you may not, oh, I may have forgot this, but practice. Once you get it down and you keep doing it enough. Now, if I'm going to stress anything that because people are so big on verbs, I mean, have you really seen the nouns? I mean, oh my goodness, do you know how many patterns is in the nouns? Oh man, that's just really out there. But if they really want to learn something with the verbs, the thing is, again, if you want to learn one conjugation down pat, I would strongly suggest learn the pa'al or the call form. Learn the call form. Once you learn that call form, everything else builds off of it. I promise you, it'll make it simpler for you. And a lot of Hebrew teachers don't teach that because they have been, they're teaching from a methodology that's been passed down. Okay. So me, again, I'm unorthodox. I'm a type of brother like, hey, so you mean to tell me if a word begins with a shavah, you mean to tell me that it's not considered a consonant? These are things that I look at. I'll look at these things and I'll say, okay, I could just simplify this by saying, let me just really get the conjugation call down, and then everything else falls into place. And once you learn the tenses, then you will no longer need the training wheels or the nikudot, because you will already know the tenses. You'll know exactly what's going on, what form it is, what person is it, second person, third person. You know, the personal pronouns are another thing that you want to learn when it comes to the verbs. You want to learn that, you know, ata, at, you know, anachnu, atem, aten, you know, him, hen. You know, you want to learn all of that, because those pronouns will save your life. Because if I say a word like bishvacha, bishvali, bishvala, bishvalo, bishvachem, bishvahen, you'll be like, okay, I heard that, I know. Because the beautiful thing about Hebrew is that if I say bishvacha, you know I'm talking to who?
A woman.
A woman.
And
Am I
I'll
talking
show
to a woman?
that. Right. Yeah. And you are talking to a woman. You're talking to Shanti. And by the way, when it says MS here or FS, it's masculine singular or feminine singular. And when he said the ah, he said
Bishvilcha,
ah at the end.
No, why I said it, Shanti. Bishvacha is not for a woman.
that's for a guy.
Oh, who? For a guy. Oh, wait. I got that wrong. No. Go ahead.
But you know what? Hey, let me say something. Let me throw
Well,
something in.
why
I'm
would it be for a guy? But go ahead.
Well, because
Well,
otherwise he would have said Bishvilech.
right.
Oh, okay.
Can.
Okay.
Nachon.
It's the root of the word. Go ahead.
But
Go ahead.
But hold on. Now, actually, Sister Shanti is correct, because it's interesting that in biblical Hebrew, bishvacha was masculine. I mean, bishvalech was masculine, and bishvacha was actually feminine. But somehow it got switched around in modern Hebrew.
In modern Hebrew. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
But bishvalech is actually masculine in biblical Hebrew.
Okay.
Right. I mean, and I'm sure also, like, for example, you're reading through the Torah, you read through the Torah cycle, you'll also notice, you know, here and there that it flip-flops and it switches, because throughout the
It
Torah,
does.
sometimes when, you know, it says, you know, El Moshe, and then he says something lach instead of lecha, he says lach.
Mm-hmm.
Or, you know, even sometimes even expressions to the Most High himself, sometime lach will be used instead of lecha. So it makes you kind of, so yeah, you're right. I've seen that.
So it shows you something deeper there that you know that people miss, even with the name. So I mean, everything about this language is so rhythmic, it's so powerful, you know. And again, this is why we're all doing this now, is because the foundation of this is to make you hungry and say, you know what, I've been lied to for so long. Because what I tell people is, when you read a translation, like Sister Shanti was talking about earlier, a translation is that you're getting half power. You're getting half power. Why not go for the full throttle? If the school says, hey, you got to learn Spanish. Spanish is a beautiful language. It is. But it's not what our manuscript was written in. I want to know exactly what the heart of my Father was saying in its originality. I want the full power, not half power.
Right.
You see.
Where's Brother Mitz? Where's Brother Mitz?
He's still in here.
I ain't heard him in a minute. I know that brother.
Oh, wait
got
a minute.
Oh, percentage.
Yeah, well, hold on. Let me see. Is he okay? Hold on. Let me see. Let me. No, he's in here.
Oh,
he's in here.
Okay.
He's probably he's in here.
Well, I mean, because
he's probably going somewhere. Go ahead.
I mentioned him because, when I saw the thing that you put up, Shanti, saying, what time it was going to be and whatever, I hit these individual names so I could see a little bit of something. And I think the brother's very modest when I think he made mention to his level of
very
Hebrew
modest.
is written. Yeah, because I saw the script that he put up on the dry erase board, and it almost gave me a migraine. I can make it out somewhat, but then also he said something also that rings true kind of to what we're talking about. He was making the distinction between the fact that Torah or Tanakh Hebrew is vastly different from the spoken language in that. I mean, again, morphology, form, X, Y, and Z. Now, the root is there. I agree with Amitz that, the foundation is there. A lot of people try to attack the language, especially in our awakening. They try to attack and call it Yiddish and call it X, Y, and Z, which is, really just silliness to me. But
Yep.
the brother Mitz made a comment. He said, if you're trying to walk through the streets of Israel, trying to communicate with people through biblical Hebrew, it's going to sound like you're speaking. It's going to sound very Shakespearean because, for example, we have, and I think I've used this example probably with you, Shanti, where we have in English, I like you, right? Hebrew doesn't have a word for like so much. Love is the same word for like, and if you tell someone, I love you, or I like you, trying to speak in a biblical Hebrew type form, you would say something to them in effect of, "At motzet chen be'einai," you find favor in my eyes, right? And it's like, who's going to be out on a date in a movie theater, pass the popcorn, and you look deep in her eyes and say, "At motzet chen be'einai," and it's going to be, what is he? Is he trying to like make a move on me with some old school speaking? So yeah, I think those type of nuances and differences are very important to point out, and the brother did it effectively in one of the videos that I saw of it.
I agree. I've
Right.
seen one of his videos too, and it was very informing. Very informing. See, all these levels, I mean, they're powerful levels. And I just hope somebody out there is getting hungry. I hope they got their plate in front of them. Like, look, I'm ready to eat too.
Right. I know, brother Mark and Shalom Mark. You said when is we gonna do a Q&A? Not today. I'm gonna wrap it up in like 9 more minutes, but we can maybe do a part 2 if the brothers agree to come on. I can get them on maybe in a couple of weeks do a part 2, or maybe next week do a part 2. Who knows? We have to look at timing. Y'all willing? To do a part 2 where we got Q&A. But I wanted to keep this short. This is a special Torah Tittles of the text, because usually I try to keep it to an hour, and I said hour and 30 minutes max. Because our attention span as adults is just kind of minute. I mean, kind of minuscule, if you will. So it's like when somebody goes to your YouTube channel and they see that you got a teaching on there for 3 hours, they're like, "Oh my gosh, I don't have 3 hours to look at the video." So I try to keep it short. However, what brother Amitz, and More David are saying about Mitzilel is being very modest. Mitzilel, he be over there teaching the Cuneiform form, Akkadian. He be looking at the Ugarit. He also knows some Greek, biblical Greek.
That brother be talking to the aliens, man. I'm trying to tell you.
Right. But I was just showing a couple of paradigm charts here. I know paradigm means the model or the pattern that you will see, but I know this looks intimidating. However, when you become a serious student of the language, you will definitely get into this, and you'll probably not have to go back into it a lot. I still go into them a lot, as well as actually
Hey, sis.
reading the text. Yes.
I'm sorry. Please, look, I'm so sorry. It's just so
Go
I
ahead.
hate interrupting. There are individuals that may not necessarily understand. So, for instance, when we say that biblical Hebrew and modern standard spoken or conversational Israeli Hebrew are fundamentally 2 different languages, I really mean that. This is not like to castigate spoken Hebrew or modern Hebrew. It's just a different language, right? And so when we look at paradigm charts, there are paradigm charts that you may find like in 201 verbs and 501, but that is for modern Hebrew.
That's for
Biblical
modern.
Hebrew does not utilize that paradigmatic system, right? Biblical Hebrew or ancient Hebrew utilizes second feminine plural, or third feminine plural form, versus modern Hebrew, which utilizes the common form in the third plural and second plural, right? And so that could have disastrous results if someone is attempting to approach biblical Hebrew by utilizing the mechanisms of modern Hebrew grammar. Modern Hebrew grammar and biblical Hebrew grammar are not congruent. It's not like, well, one is just one script and one is the other. No, they are different languages. So people, if they're out there like, I'm just going to go pick up 501 verbs, that is not going to get it for biblical Hebrew.
Not for biblical. Thank you for saying
correct.
that.
I agree with that
And
because
go ahead.
the biblical Hebrew language itself is not a big language. It's not. But all praises to Eliezer ben Yehuda, who took the opportunity and discipline to revive it, because biblical language was just used for prayer. It wasn't really used for being spoken every day as it is now in Yisrael. But Ben Eliezer, he said, you know what? I want my family. Well, it was a kind of dispute between him and his wife because his wife was secretly teaching his child her language. So he kind of revived that language to an extent to where it is now. I agree with the brother is that if you try to use biblical Hebrew in a modern way, because it's not a big language, it will cause difficulty. It will. It'll cause a lot of difficulty, but it is still a good foundation to learn. And even, Hamose Ben, that's still a beautiful word. But yeah, you don't want to use that on a date, because you might just make her say, you know what, I don't know what he said, but I'm just gonna go.
Hey,
you
know
want
what?
to embrace both.
One thing, if I can say,
because it's a beautiful language, because like anything else, even English or any other language, is evolving. Hebrew is ever evolving. It has a mixture of, a lot of Arabic words. Because my students, can you teach me slang? Okay, first thing I'll say, okay, I'll teach you akhla, yalla, baba. They like that, but I'm like,
Yeah. Hey, I know.
And David's being modest here too, because he's fluent in the modern Israeli. Go ahead.
I know. He could tell. So look, I know Brother Amitz, he would appreciate this. So it's funny that he mentions Eliezer ben Yehuda, because me, Brother Mark McGee in the chat, and Pastor Henry Benz, we flew to North Carolina a few years ago to a conference called Return of the Book. And we met Eliezer ben Yehuda's grandson, who, he looked to be about maybe 79 or 80 when we met him there in North Carolina. And it was so funny if you think about the work and the labor that his grandpa had to put put in order to get this done. This guy that we met, his dad was the first modern Hebrew speaking born baby like in Israel, period, because of what his grandpa did. So, I told Mark and Henry, I said, let's have a little fun with him, because people are walking up to him, speaking to him or whatever. So I walk up to him, and really nice, elder statesman type of guy. I walk up to him, I put my hand out, I say a very generic shalom to him. And then I proceed to say, אני רציתי לקחת את ההזדמנות הזאת לומר לך, רב תודות לך על כל העבודה הקשה מהסבתא שלך, זה כל כך נהדר. And he started blinking, kind of like, and he said, whoa, is this really happening? And it's like, yeah, your grandpa put in some work. And he told me about how proud that made him feel, not only that it had spilled outside of Israel proper, but also that other people were speaking it. Of course, he ain't looking for, some mocha-colored brother come walking up and and talking to him like that. So it was really funny, because every time I would look up here and there, he would give me kind of like this look, and he would just wag his head and smile. So yeah, big props to his grandpa for that.
Oh,
yeah, so this is the last chart I'm going to put up. I'm not going to put up a whole bunch of paradigm charts, but these are the pronominal suffixes, right? To let you know the words that are in the possessive. When you say my, your, his, hers, ours, yours, theirs, right? Just a little bit of that. And look at this word, Torah. The root word is Torah, right? Torati, Toratecha, Toratech, right? You keep hearing the root, the kal, as Murray Amitz would say. But I want to give a few more shout outs, and then we're going to bring this to a close, and I'm going to have some closing remarks from the guests, and then one of the guests say the priestly Aaronic blessing. So I want to say shalom to Brother Tony. Thank you for your kind words. It is awesome to know that what the Most High allows us to do, the Most High Yah allows us to do, is actually edifying, which is building you up. And also, we hope it's entertaining. You know, we're all being really humble right here, but all these mores here, we got some bubbly personalities. We got some bubbly personalities. Oh my goodness, it's fun. It's just fun learning the word. It's fun learning this language. You just can't get enough of this stuff. We're like children in a candy store when it comes to this. So now you guys have an understanding why I've been excited about just sharing these things, challenging myself with coming on teaching in the Hebrew. These brothers have inspired me to want to do that. And I am not the only woman who does this. Please know this. There are Brother Amitz was saying his teacher is a woman. His Hebrew language teacher, biblical Hebrew language teacher, is a woman. There are plenty of us out here, and I want more of us to be vocal. And if you know them, share them. Right. So we're gonna have some closing remarks. Brothers, please give your contact information, your YouTube, your Facebook, your email, last closing words. So I'm going to start with the brother Mitsilel. And then we're going to wrap this thing on up. And then you guys can pick out of you all who's going to say the priestly Aaronic blessing. Go ahead. Go ahead, Mitz.
Okay, so I'm sincerely appreciative to you. Awesome format, great panel. When it's all done and said, I think that any person of faith should endeavor to learn the text for themselves. I think that for women, especially as a marginalized population, some of the most egregious crimes are perpetrated against them as a demographic in the name of God. And I believe that if women were empowered to be able to read the text for themselves, these crimes would not occur at such a high frequency. So at the end of the day, I would encourage all people of faith, whatever faith walk it is, if it's based on a text, then you should endeavor towards proficiency in that text. So I appreciate you again. Toda Rabbi. And for anyone who wants to reach out to me, you can reach out to Ashanti. She knows how to find me.
All right, I'll hook you up with Brother Meats. And then when this stream is over, I'll go back and add all of you guys' contact information and your pages, all of that good stuff in there. Thank you, Brother Mitz. Yes, Mitz definitely encourages the women. Learn the text for yourself, right? Become equipped, because you don't know what the Most High has gifted, talented, skilled you with unless you give it a shot, right? And I was scared at first to learn because I was a C student in Spanish. And now I'm doing what I'm doing. And I hope to get on these brothers' level. That's my goal. All right. More Amitz.
Real quick, Toda Rabbi to you, Ashanti. Toda Rabbi to all the brothers here, all the Maureen who are here. I'm soaking up too. As I always say, I don't want to be so much of a teacher that I no longer remain a student. These are words that I live by, okay? Because I'm a sponge every day, soaking up information. And not only soaking up information, but I become a Berean too, and I will seek it out. And you have to confirm it. You have to make sure that it aligns with everything. And I'm just ecstatic for this platform as well. So I hope to come back again and share more with y'all at the appropriate time. So my thing is, I want everyone to be hungry, and I want us to get in the mind state, Hebrews, that we are relearning our language. This is our first language. It was taken from us. Relearn your language. Relearn your heritage. Yes, we are not a people who do not have a culture or identity. We are a people who has a culture, language, and identity. We have that. We are fashionable. Everybody wants to be like us. Look at every other nation. Okay, yeah, so we have to present that light better than what we are. Present it in a way that when people come to the light out of the darkness, that they feel good about it. Okay, so we have to continue to stay fearful of Yah and help our fellow man. My contact information, what I can spit off my head, my Facebook page, which is Amitz Yehuda. I also have a music page, which is the same. It probably pop up the same thing as Amitz Yehuda. And then my school website is www.heartofyehovahbetsefer.com. And that's it.
Yep, I'll upload that. Thank you again, Moray Amitz, coming on. I mean, your contribution, all of you guys' contribution is just like off the chain. Like you said, always be a student. I'm soaking up, and I'm still soaking up. Thank you. Would you do a part two, Mitz? I mean,
Yeah,
part
yeah,
two. Okay, question and
yeah,
A.
and there you are.
I mean Q&A part two. Okay, cool. All right.
And there you
So
are.
brother David, Moray David.
Yes, yes, all minds cleared. Here we are, Father, like an empty pitcher before a full fountain, saying thank you. Oh, look out. Wrong page. So look, again, I am humbled, really, really humbled, as Yaakov said. Yaakov said when Esav comes across and he thinks he's getting ready to kill him, and he's got a whole bunch of men with him, and Yaakov says, "Katonti mikol chasadim." He says, I'm diminished. I've become so small. He's telling the Most High, because of all of the goodness and kindness that you showed me. And trust me, there's an idea people have of you based on what they think you know. But it's great also to run into some people that can really wow you. And that brother Mitz over there, it's just like wow, and then also brother Amitz and his application and the knowledge. Miss Ruhama did a very, very, very good job with you, young man. What I would say is this, and it kind of echoes what Brother Mitz said: be careful what you ask for, because we have so much pushback when it comes to telling one of our people, and you know how we are, you need to learn the language of the Bible. We have so much pushback when it comes to that. But like what Brother Mitz said earlier, I don't have to push anything to you. None of us have to push anything to you with respect to what we believe. But with knowledge of the language, it's like a piñata. It's going to take a really big stick to your action figure full of candy, if it's your theology. It's going to smack it, and gumdrops and lemonheads are going to fly everywhere. Okay, so I don't say that to make anyone afraid by any stretch of the imagination, but if you think about it, I'm challenging people who are watching and are listening to this in this way. If you're going to grab a hold of a belief system, give it to your wife, give it to your posterity, and be willing to lay down and die as they bury you and say the words of a faith over you, you might want to do some investigating. You might want to make sure, as we used to say in the church world, you might want to make sure that you know that you know that you know. Okay? And there's no greater or better investment than the deed to a promise that's yours, in line with Brother Amitz, that's been taken and removed. The deed to a promise that's yours, and blessings that are yours. Remember the iconic words of Moshe: on one hand, offer you bracha or klala. All right? Chaim or mavet. Choose chaim and choose the bracha, the blessing, and choose life. I look forward to getting together with you, brothers, real soon. And thank you again, sisters, so much. I appreciate this opportunity.
Yeah, I thank you all, brothers, once again. This is powerful. powerful. I don't know if y'all realize how powerful this is. This stream is. This is awesome. Part 2. It's going to come. Y'all willing. I'm going to get y'all brothers again. This is why I say I am not above correction. And me learning the Hebrew, the biblical Hebrew language, these are some of the brothers I be talking about when I say I go to them to confirm things. And if they correct me, I take the correction. Hands down, I take the correction. Right? I'm not above correction, and these are the brothers who help correct. Right? So, with that being said, thank y'all for tuning in. Those who have joined in now, those who will watch later. I hope this was edifying as well as entertaining. Part 2, Brother Vinny said, do a part 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 5. I'll see how many we can do. Y'all willing, you know. But I really appreciate what the Most High is doing right now with what Brother Amitz said. We are relearning. And I hope we remain objectively open to relearning. Right? And like Brother David said, be careful though what you wish for. Because if you're going to cry out to the Most High is going to answer. And then comes this, right? So I love y'all. I love y'all with the love of the Most High. I want y'all to continue to have a good and blessed weekend. Remain safe, remain steadfast, and in the blessings, right? Blessings. So blessing. Speaking of blessing, who wants to do the priestly Aaronic blessing to close us out?
I vote for Brother Mitz. I'd love to hear Brother Mitz.
No, Brother Aviv, lech. Yeah.
He said, go.
You sure? You sure?
Ken.
Okay.
אני בטוח.
אתה בטוח, וואו. כל הכבוד לך. Okay. And it says in the Torah that the Most High commanded Moses and Aaron to bless the people in this way. יברכך אדוני וישמרך. יאר אדוני פניו אליך ויחונך. יישא אדוני פניו אליך וישם לך shalom. May Adonai bless you and keep you. May Adonai lift his face upon you and be gracious to you. May Adonai cause his face to shine upon you and give you his shalom, or his wholeness and his peace. May it be to you and your houses, everyone.
All right. So with that being said, Amen. This is another Torah Tittles of the text. And we'll be back again. Shalom, shalom, mishpacha, wahabrim.